On a quiet street in Rockford, Illinois, the morning of August 22, 2016, began like any other. Commuters filled the roads, children waited at bus stops, and neighbors waved from their porches. But at the small two-story house on North Auburn Avenue, something was very wrong. Sarah Whitmore, a 34-year-old nurse, didn't show up for her early shift at Rockford General Hospital. She was known for her punctuality, her warmth with patients, and her meticulous routine, the kind of person who'd call ahead if she were even 5 minutes late. By 9 a.m., her phone went straight to voicemail. By 10 a.m., her husband, David Whitmore, told co-workers she had probably gone to her sister's. By noon, her sister called police. When officers arrived at the Whitmore home, David seemed calm, too calm, according to the first responder, Officer Lynn Craver. He didn't look worried. More inconvenienced, Craver later said. Like someone had interrupted his day. The house was spotless. Nothing overturned, no sign of struggle. Her car was still in the driveway, her purse and keys on the kitchen counter. Only her phone was missing. When detectives searched the house, they noticed something odd. The basement door was locked from the outside. David explained he'd been working on rewiring down there, and didn't want anyone to trip over cables. Police accepted it, at least for the moment. For the next 48 hours, volunteers canvassed the area, handing out flyers with Sarah's smiling face. But no one had seen her leave the house. No security footage, no phone pings. She had simply vanished. Then came a discovery that deepened the mystery. A jogger found a burnt cell phone near the edge of the Rock River, confirmed to be Sarah's by its serial number. The SIM card was missing, and the damage suggested deliberate destruction. Detective Mara Jensen, who led the case, said later, "Someone wanted that phone gone, and whoever did knew what they were doing." David continued to cooperate, but his timeline was shaky. He claimed he went to a hardware store that morning, then to work. But surveillance showed he never entered the store. By the end of that week, the investigation had shifted focus from a missing person to a likely homicide. And yet, no body was found. No DNA, no signs of forced entry, no usable evidence. Sarah Whitmore was officially declared missing under suspicious circumstances. Her family didn't believe she was alive. Her husband insisted she'd run off. But beneath the neat little house on North Auburn Avenue, a secret was buried, one that would remain untouched for nearly 4 years. 4 months after Sarah Whitmore's disappearance, the case drifted. Local media called it the nurse who vanished. Flyers faded on telephone poles, and new cases replaced hers in the headlines. Detective Mara Jensen, though, couldn't let it go. Something about David Whitmore's composure unsettled her. "Most husbands in that situation collapse," she said in an interview years later. He just didn't. When investigators retraced David's alibi, they uncovered inconsistencies. He had clocked in at work that Monday morning, but his supervisor remembered him leaving early, saying, "Family emergency." He returned hours later, sweaty and anxious, then left again around 3 p.m. No one knew where he went. Detectives obtained a warrant to inspect the couple's bank records. They found that, 2 weeks before Sarah vanished, David had withdrawn $8,000 in cash and searched online for how to dissolve bone in soil. He claimed he was researching septic systems. Jensen wasn't convinced. But without physical evidence, the case went cold by early 2017. David sold the home, moved to a smaller property just outside Rockford, and started a new relationship within a year. Sarah's family was furious. They staged candlelight vigils every August, each one smaller than the last. But Detective Jensen never stopped digging. In late 2019, She requested the cold case files again, hoping fresh technology might reveal something new. That's when a technician noticed something unusual. During the original 2016 search, the basement hadn't been fully scanned with ground-penetrating radar. At the time, they'd stopped after clearing the main floor. The concrete beneath a corner laundry unit was thicker than expected, but it had never been analyzed. Jensen secured a new warrant to re-examine the property. By this time, the house had changed hands twice. The current owners, the McCarthys, agreed to let police inspect it. They'd occasionally mentioned strange odors in the basement, especially after heavy rain. Then on March 11, 2020, investigators entered the basement for the first time in 4 years. The air was damp and stale. Jensen walked toward the corner beneath the stairwell, where the old washer and dryer once stood, and noticed a faint outline in the concrete, like a rectangular patch slightly darker than the rest. When technicians ran ground-penetrating radar across it, the display showed a dense, irregular shape roughly 6 feet long, 2 feet wide. A silence fell over the room. "We all knew what we were looking at," Jensen said later. "But we didn't say it out loud." They ordered a forensic excavation. Within hours, small fragments began to surface, first bits of fabric, then what looked like bone. By evening, crime scene units had cordoned off the property. The discovery made local news before DNA testing even confirmed it. But Jensen already knew. They'd finally found Sarah. When forensic teams analyzed the remains, they determined she'd suffered blunt force trauma to the back of the skull. The position of the body, wrapped in a bedsheet and sealed beneath fresh concrete, suggested a hurried burial. Detectives theorized she'd been killed in the basement, perhaps during an argument, then hidden during the hours David was unaccounted for. The next morning, Jensen and her team drove to David Whitmore's new residence. He was in the yard, fixing a fence. When he saw the unmarked cars, he froze. Jensen stepped forward. "David Whitmore, you are under arrest for the murder of your wife, Sarah Whitmore." He didn't resist. He didn't even ask why. In custody, David was calm. When confronted with the evidence, he sighed and said, "You were never supposed to find her." He confessed to striking Sarah during an argument about finances. She'd threatened to leave him and take their savings. He said she hit her head, though forensic reports showed multiple blows. After realizing she was dead, he panicked. He bought bags of cement, poured a slab over her body, and told everyone she'd left him. But his story contained contradictions. Why destroy her phone? Why the $8,000 withdrawal? Detectives believed the fight wasn't spontaneous, it was premeditated. He'd planned to eliminate her and cover it up. By April 2020, David Whitmore was formally charged with first-degree murder. The discovery beneath that basement floor sent shockwaves through Rockford. News outlets revisited the old footage of Sarah smiling at her nursing graduation, her mother crying on local TV, and the neighbors who remembered the police cars parked out front years earlier. Everyone thought the house's dark history was behind them. But the truth had always been right below their feet. The arrest of David Whitmore reignited a case many in Rockford thought was long over. Media vans lined North Auburn Avenue, and the once quiet neighborhood turned into a circus of reporters, old friends, and strangers holding "Justice for Sarah" signs. Detective Mara Jensen became the face of the investigation, the detective who cracked a case no one else could. But she knew the real battle was only beginning. The trial began in December 2020 under tight media scrutiny. The prosecution painted David as a manipulative, jealous husband who couldn't handle losing control. They presented the forensic evidence, the concrete slab, the fractured skull, and a damning discovery from his old laptop. A deleted search history that included phrases like, "How deep to bury a body indoors?" and "How long before concrete masks smell?" David's defense attorney argued that the death was accidental, that David panicked and covered it up out of fear, not premeditation. He claimed Sarah had been unstable, that she might have fallen during the fight, and that David made terrible choices afterward. But the jury wasn't convinced. Several former neighbors testified. One woman, Pamela Rhodes, remembered hearing a loud argument that morning, a woman screaming, "Get off me!" followed by the sound of heavy dragging. Another neighbor said David was seen carrying multiple bags of cement into the basement that same afternoon. Then came the testimony that sealed the case. A Home Depot manager recalled David buying cement, plastic sheeting, and odor neutralizer the day after Sarah disappeared, paid for in cash. Surveillance footage confirmed it. Midway through the trial, prosecutors uncovered something chilling. In 2012, 4 years before Sarah's disappearance, David had been investigated for domestic assault against a former girlfriend in Indiana. The woman had suffered a concussion but later withdrew the complaint. The prosecution used this to establish a pattern of violence and control. In court, David's calm demeanor finally cracked. He muttered under his breath as witnesses spoke, at one point shouting, "You don't know what she did to me," before being restrained by deputies. The courtroom fell silent. Detective Jensen later said, "That was the first time we saw the real him, the side Sarah probably saw before she died." Throughout the proceedings, Sarah's mother, Ellen Myers, sat in the front row, clutching a framed photo of her daughter. When the prosecutor displayed crime scene photos, Ellen looked away, tears streaming down her face. During her victim impact statement, she said softly, "For 4 years, I prayed for a miracle. I just never imagined the miracle would come with this kind of pain." Her words left the courtroom silent. Even the judge paused before continuing. After 2 weeks of testimony and 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The foreperson stood and read the verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant, David Whitmore, guilty of first-degree murder." David didn't flinch. He simply looked at Detective Jensen and whispered, "You should have left it buried." He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. As he was led away, reporters shouted questions, but he never spoke again publicly. Following the trial, authorities demolished part of the basement floor during renovations. Beneath the concrete, forensic experts found personal items, a broken necklace, a set of house keys, and an old Polaroid photo of Sarah smiling with her sister. It appeared David had dropped them during the cover-up, small, almost poetic fragments of the life he tried to erase. Detective Jensen said that finding them felt like Sarah's final testimony. By 2021, the Whitmore case became a standard module in Illinois police training, an example of why cold cases should never be considered closed until every inch of evidence is reviewed. But even then, there was one detail that continued to haunt Jensen. The 2016 police report listed 2 key copies for the basement door. One was found in David's toolbox. The second key was never located. Some believe Sarah might have kept it, perhaps as protection, or as evidence she sensed danger in her own home. The conviction of David Whitmore brought a sense of closure, at least on paper. But for Detective Mara Jensen, something about the case refused to settle. She'd solved dozens of murders in her career, but this one lingered. The precision of the burial, the calculated calm in David's confession, it didn't feel like a panicked act. It felt like practice. And one small thing gnawed at her, the missing basement key. In early 2021, Jensen received an unexpected call from a property manager in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the same city where David had lived before marrying Sarah. The manager had been clearing out an old storage unit David once rented and came across a box labeled House Tools. Inside were assorted screws, broken light fixtures, and a small padlocked tin. Inside that tin was a single key, marked with red nail polish, and a USB flash drive. When investigators opened the drive, they found a series of images, receipts, blueprints of basement layouts, and what appeared to be photos of an unfinished concrete floor. Metadata dated the images to 2012, 4 years before Sarah vanished. One file name stood out. April_2012_Amanda_house.jpg. Detectives cross-referenced that name, and what they found changed the case forever. In April 2012, a 29-year-old woman named Amanda LeClaire disappeared from Fort Wayne. Her case had gone cold after only a few months. She had been dating a man at the time, a contractor named Daniel White. Police now knew that Daniel White was an alias David Whitmore had used before moving to Illinois. Amanda had vanished in almost identical circumstances. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, no body. When authorities returned to David's old Indiana residence, now owned by another family, they noticed something eerily familiar, a concrete patch beneath the garage floor that didn't match the original slab. This time, no one hesitated. After several days of excavation, forensic teams found human remains wrapped in tarpaulin. Dental records confirmed the identity, Amanda LeClaire. The discovery sent shockwaves through both states. What had started as a tragic domestic homicide had just evolved into a multi-state serial murder case. Investigators now theorized that David Whitmore had killed at least 2 women, both partners, both buried beneath homes he'd shared with them. Jensen told the press, "It wasn't rage. It was control. He wanted them close enough to keep, and hidden enough never to be found." Authorities reopened other missing person cases linked to him, but no further remains were found. Still, the 2 confirmed murders painted a chilling portrait of a man who built tombs beneath his own life. When the new findings hit national news, people in Rockford gathered once more outside Sarah's former home. They placed candles and flowers near the foundation, now cracked and empty. Reporters from Dateline and 48 Hours covered the story, dubbing it the basement burials. Sarah's mother declined interviews but issued a written statement. He wanted her hidden forever. Instead, her story uncovered another lost woman. That's what justice looks like. Detective Jensen received a commendation for her persistence, but she described it as bittersweet. "We found the truth," she said. But every answer in this case came from something horrifying. In 2022, the Whitmore property was demolished. A memorial garden now stands in its place, planted by local volunteers. A small stone reads, "For Sarah Whitmore and all who were silenced beneath the floor." Each spring, yellow tulips bloom where the concrete once stood. Visitors often say the place feels peaceful now, quiet, almost reverent. But neighbors sometimes claim that late at night, when the wind cuts through the trees, you can still hear the faint hum of digging, a memory trapped in the soil, refusing to fade. Detective Jensen doesn't believe in ghosts, but she does believe in echoes. And this case, she says, will echo through her mind for the rest of her life.